MMA Junkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Go. This is what we doing while we do it, baby. We rollin'!
Covering MMA from all over the world, this is the premier stop for all your combat sports needs. MMA Junkie Radio, the only show broadcasting live from the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. The lights are on and the mics are hot. It's time to get your MMA fix, junkies. Take it away, Big John.
Gorgeous George and Goes, are you ready? Junkie Nation, are you ready? Well, let's get it on.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Race and Sportsbook, you're listening to the MMA Junkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes. Our ace co-host to my left, it's the fight analyst, Dan Tom. Back east, producing Andre the Giant and Jumbo Josh. All right, before we get things started on Friday, June 21st, we're going to talk to Jerry Cooney from At The Fights. So he's staying over a couple minutes. What's up, Jerry? How you doing?
Hey, all good. Great to be on with you guys. I love your show. I can't wait. You said Mandalay Bay. I can't wait to get out there.
Yeah, we've been waiting for you, man.
Soon.
There's been some big fights. We missed it a couple months ago.
A lot of great fights. Listen, MMA fights, a lot of boxing matches. Listen, it's all coming together. We're going to see some great fights in the heavyweight division in the next couple of years. I can tell you that.
Tell Marissa to loosen up that budget so you guys can get out here more often.
That's what I'm talking about right now.
All right, so Gills has something up his sleeve, though. He goes, man, Jerry's got to tell you this story. What is it, Gills, again?
I feel connected to Jerry Cooney's soul.
Okay.
Because I saw a little video today where Jerry was telling a story. You know me, George.
Oh, man.
I don't get that upset. But
Yeah.
when I do, I get upset.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely understood Jerry Cooney's point. But, Jerry, do you want me to walk them through it or you want to walk us through it?
Wait, just not to interrupt you guys now again, but why don't we actually hear the actual audio of said clip Goes?
Let's do it.
You gotta be kidding me. The guy came over, showed him his old antique car. He's gotta go to the bathroom. He goes into the bathroom. He comes out. I'm walking around with him, looking at the car and some thoughts. I go in to go to the bathroom. He pissed on his seat. I said, you get the fuck out of my house. Don't ever come back to my house again. That's a true story. That was disgusting, bro. That was probably the worst thing that ever happened to me. That's a horrible show, isn't it? Damn, it was just to think about it, the chills come back to me right now, bro. I want to choke him right now. I don't know where he is, but if he was here, I would choke his ass right now. That's a terrible story. That's a real terrible story. Let me tell you something. Did you ever have that happen to you?
I've had a few people do it. I've had it, too, where I haven't looked and I've sat in it. That doesn't feel good. But I have so many questions for you.
So this happened at Jerry's house?
Oh, my God.
This is at Jerry's house.
This happened at my house. This was a former Vietnam veteran who came over. He was an auto body guy. I was born in 1956 or 49. A car off him. We were talking what we're going to do with it. He disappears into the bathroom, comes back out. We're talking how we're going to paint it, what we're going to do with it. I went to go to the bathroom, and he pissed all over the seats.
He already painted it for you, Jerry.
Oh, my God. It was a horrible show, bro. He painted it all right.
Jerry, maybe you need a sign. My theater teacher had one in her bathroom that said, if you sprinkle when you tinkle, please be neat and wipe the seat.
Oh, there you go.
Here you go. Well, this guy didn't have that in his repertoire, obviously.
So that was the end of the deal right there?
That was not only the end of the deal. I never saw him again. I never wanted to see him again. That was how insulting is that? A guy comes in your home for the first time, and that's what he does?
How bad was it? Did you think he was on a unicycle when he was urinating, or was it just a little bit?
Yeah, just a couple drops, or was
Don't bring me back there, guys. What kind of nonsense is that? But you want to bring me back to that, do you?
Well, we just want to know if you're being a piggy
it doesn't
bastard.
matter if there's a couple of drops or he peed on my seat. It was terrible. It was the worst feeling you could ever have in your life.
That's not that bad. If it's a couple drops, it ain't that bad.
Not that bad. Are you kidding me?
I mean, it's rude. Don't get me wrong. It's rude, but you're acting like...
Listen, let me just tell you guys, you MM guys...
Like you left the deuce on your pillow or something.
Doogie. He left the doogie on the pillow. He left the doogie on the pillow.
So then you go back, and right away there's not like a, hey, so what's your final offer? You just say, hey, get the hell out of here?
Yeah, listen, I was doing a show this morning to promote my book, Gentleman Jerry, A Contender in the Ring, a Champion in Recovery. And I was on WABC radio, and so I'm standing in the studio before we're going to go in. I said, listen, I have to go to the bathroom. Can you help me? She said, yeah, come with me. She says, oh, there's a bathroom there? I said, where's? She says, you don't want to go there. Somebody did a doogie in there this morning. I said, that was the first time I heard that. A doogie. A doogie. What the hell is going on in America here?
Wow.
So if you went back to the driveway and he said, Jerry, you'll never guess, I got a deal, we're going to do this for super cheap, it wouldn't have mattered, he's out?
No, it was over, bro. It was all over. I don't want nothing to do with that guy. That is the most horrific thing you could do to somebody is go in their bathroom and piss on their seat. You got to be kidding me, bro.
You know what sucks is when you go to a party and you go in there and someone's done a number like pee or whatever. But you know that when you walk out the door, they're gonna think it's you.
Oh yeah,
unless you're part of the cleanup crew.
Well, let me tell you something. Once that happens to you once, that never happens to you ever again, my friend. Never again did it ever happen to you again.
Now, wait a minute, though, Jerry. In fairness, you've admitted on air that you keep a cup in the studio and you don't use the bathroom and break. You use the cup and break, and you're going to get on someone else for maybe leaving a drop or two on your seat.
I can't. Where is this conversation going? This is going downhill. Oh my God. This is going way downhill, bro. You got to be kidding me, bro. I can't stand for this.
That's more than a peek behind the curtain, Josh.
Listen, I can't stand for this. Let me sit down.
Wait, are you peeing right now? Or?
Listen, I love you guys out west. I can't wait to get with you. Enjoy your show tonight.
We're going to the fights. We're going to the boxing match on Sunday.
Wow, good for you guys. I wish we could be with you, bro. Yeah.
All right.
Well, we'll talk
Thanks
on Monday, right?
All right.
And Jerry will see all you guys out in Vegas for Pacquiao Thurman, and he won't even piss on the studio.
I just got to watch yourself. I might pee on you now. This thing is growing. Taking off like a weed.
I hope
just watch yourself. Watch yourselves around me.
All right, guys.
I love you guys.
All
See you,
right,
baby.
have a good weekend. See you.
Bye.
Catch Randy Gordon, Jerry Cooney Mondays and Fridays for At the Fights, highly rated boxing show here on all of SiriusXM, but we get them exclusively here on Fight Nation Channel 156. Showtime for them is the 2 hours right before us, 3 to 6 Pacific, 5 to 8 Eastern. All right, so on today's show, we're going to talk to Patrick Mix, Bellator bantamweight. He'll come on around 9:20 Eastern. Sean Wheelock will follow him. He's the BKFC play-by-play guy. So we'll talk a little bit more about that fight card they got going on. BKFC 6 in Tampa, which every time I go on Junkie, there's yet another article that is pointing towards the event, whether it's the weigh-in video or press conference or a recap or something like that. So I'm glad that, and it's got a lot of shares, a lot of traffic. So I'm glad that our audience is really, really digging it. You know what I mean? It's not just us knuckleheads over here thinking, hey, you got to tune in.
Dude.
A lot of people are into it. Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know if it's for the actual fight. Like, people are sitting there going, I wonder which technique's gonna. I think it's just because somebody has to shut up.
I think it's Malignaggi and Lobov. For one, they got great heat, but Artem had a great fight against Jason Knight. So you're expecting the same here against Paulie Malignaggi. Win or lose, you're expecting the same. And then Paulie Malignaggi, obviously, he's the type of guy that's kind of tailor-made for something like this. So I think two things: the heat between the two combatants in the main event, and the fact that you just feel like it's going to be a great main event. And then you got Chris Lieben, who's just uber popular. I mean, he transcends different generations. Remember, we used to call him the tough noobs on Spike. And then we went through the Fox noobs on Fox, obviously, and now there's maybe even the ESPN noob who still knows of Lieben.
Man, they just
through everything on UFC Fight Pass, and of course BKFC. You got Joe Riggs, you got Julian Lane, you got Dakota Cochran, all these fighters that have jumped in and out of different MMA promotions. So you've caught them. You've caught them here and there.
I don't know if I could be friends with an
Jim
ESPN
Ehlers.
noob.
Wow.
If they've been around this long and have not jumped on the bandwagon.
Well, what if they're only 18 though, or 22 or something? You know what I mean?
I consider myself a tough noob, guys.
Are you?
I mean, I was aware of the sport in the late 90s and early 2000s. I would see clips of Japan stuff, but didn't start following until 2005, 2006. Like, as far as being able to. And
now you're almost 15 years into the business.
Crazy.
Not only as a fan, but now as a contributor.
Well, but he can't be a we can't call him a tough noob because he's not a noob no more, right? So what would we say?
Well, no,
now?
I'm saying back then we called him.
Yeah, but so now what is he? He's a tough core.
I don't know.
Dan.
Yeah, we got to come
right because he can't be a tough noob anymore. He was a tough noob. So what is he now? A tough
core? That's how he came in, but now he's obviously
we get that.
A junkie.
But to kind of establish the generation, what would he be called?
A junkie. I think I used to say something a long time ago.
Into one big bucket.
You go from a newbie,
that's the best way to do it.
From a newbie to a casual fan. A casual fan's like my buddy Gabe. And then you go to a hardcore, and then we'd say a junkie. And there's no way Dan's anything less than a junkie. With as much film as he watches anyway.
It's funny. He came up on Twitter last night. Shout out to Capoza at the Grabaka Hitman there. He was posting some old clips, and we posted that old Marcus Davis and Nate Diaz fight from UFC 118. And I remember that was my first call, was predictions, main card predictions, I believe, for that fight.
Sounds
actually
like Indianapolis.
No, that was in Boston. That was in Boston. And I remember because if it wasn't in Boston, my prediction would have been right because I picked Nate Diaz by third round TKO. But I gave the caveat on the show because of Marcus Davis' scar tissue. I'm like, it's going to be stopped by cuts. And I still don't put that caveat in a lot of picks. But if you remember, they almost stopped it. And between round 2 and 3, or between round 1 and 2, and between rounds 2 and 3. But if they weren't anywhere in Boston in his own backyard with that crowd shouting, I think the doctors wouldn't have felt the pressure as much and maybe stopped it because they were bad cuts. He shortly got submitted right after. But sorry, go ahead, George.
No. Davis and Nate's older brother Nick were two of the fighters that I remember getting those bones shaved down. Remember that was a technique or whatever you want to call it, because they had a lot of scar tissue and so they would cut a lot. I had never heard of such a thing, but both of those two fighters got that. And interesting times, guys.
Yes, sir.
All right, we went a little off script here, but of course, let me rewind here. You can call in, participate in the show, 877-FIGHT-93, 877-344-4893, or hit us up on Twitter at MMA on SiriusXM. It's a good way to communicate with all the shows, not just ours. All right, so we'll start off with a little bit of bad news, and then that way we can end the week on a good note.
Yeah.
The bad news is one of the fights we're all looking forward to, regardless of whether it's Bellator, BKFC, or UFC. It's John Lineker against Rob Font. Man, I saw that.
That was
this
fireworks.
Morning, our own Nolan King, I guess I caught him on Twitter, I think is where he announced it, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I literally said that, like, you gotta be kidding me, man. Why? That card in South Carolina, it's not deep.
Yeah.
And it didn't need this. I mean, this was one of those reasons that I wanted to tune in, was this fight right here, man. It sucks. It sucks that it's off. Lineker is the one that had to pull out, and Rob Font, if you see him on Twitter, he's like, hey, that's the way the kind of like the cookie crumbles. He wasn't in too bad of spirits, but he's taking it like a champ. I'm sure he'll be rebooked on some other card, but it was obviously too late to do anything about this one.
It's a cut on his eyebrow, right?
Is that what it was?
Is what held him out.
Kimbo Shamrock style. Sorry.
That's what a lot of people.
Good pull, because Pat Miletich on Twitter said, how did this happen? How does a cut happen? And I just was too lazy to go, well, I remember the Shamrock fight as well. Mm-hmm. He caught himself, but go ahead. I think what you're alluding to is maybe...
Do you remember what people said about that?
The Shamrock just didn't want to fight,
He wasn't
right?
getting paid what he wanted to.
Yeah.
So I think he claimed that as they were warming up, he butted heads with someone.
Right.
Now, I don't think that's the case in John Lineker, but if you are going to be conspiracy guy, maybe you say something like maybe that weight cut wasn't going too well, and he didn't want to run that. Go through that path again, so I don't know.
He stepped in for Cody Stamen, right?
Something like that, yeah. But what's the stat out there? Is it this year or 6 months, which would be this year, so it doesn't matter. That I believe it's 3 times. This makes 3 times John Lineker has got to pull out an injury, not like sporadic throughout his career, like in a row. So kind of feeding that theory that you guys are alluding to. The more pressure is kind of on you to perform, right? Kind of like part of the reason why I faded, Kane against Fabricio. Kane had to pull out with so many injuries. Part of me knew as a gambler, I'm like, if this guy's got injuries, he's got to suck it up for this fight because he's pulled out too many for the company. Yeah,
and I remember seeing an article about 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, where Lineker was complaining that he wasn't getting fights.
Yes, that too.
And he had a part-time job at an animal
pet shop.
Pet shop, yeah. I was like, does he work with Rocky
Pet
Balboa's wife or what? But he actually has a job because he's got a family, and I'm not making fun of that. That's a joke, obviously, but I didn't think that a guy like Lineker would have another job. I felt like he was an established veteran who now has probably been able to bank enough money that he's good.
You know what we forget about are taxes.
Oh, that too.
I wonder, like, we always talk about the Americans going that way, but do the Brazilians just get destroyed when they come this way? Do you know what their tax percentage is?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what their dollar is at. I know the politicals in turmoil, and the dollar was doing good a few years ago.
The dollar's strong over there, though, for sure.
But I mean, he definitely could be doing better than working in a pet shop. I mean, like, I don't know if it's the Rockies situation. If it wasn't Butkus, would it be a French bulldog for John Lineker? How does that go? Sorry.
What was the turtle's name? Didn't he get Turtles in the beginning? He got Butkus like in part 2, right?
Turtles. You don't. Mickey took him from me after. Sorry,
I don't remember too much about that.
You know what, you guys?
I can't
all right.
remember that part.
Oh man, I hope I'm not wrong.
Hang on to that thought. What I do want to say is this: if you live in Brazil and I live here, and we both got paid $50,000 on Saturday, your $50,000 is going to go a lot farther in Brazil than my $50,000 here. What I don't know is how bad you're going to get hammered by the United States on the way out, and then by your own taxes. I don't know that. I know a lot of American-based fighters get hammered internationally on taxes, and a few of them have given us examples of how that works out. More specifically, I don't know if I think it might be a while since I've heard of how the Brazilian or the American fighter does in Brazil, but I do know that because of the rate exchange, right now it's pretty favorable for Americans. Good time to travel to Brazil. Your dollar will go far.
I mean, it's kind of dumb, but I thought I heard this about 2 weeks ago that Sylvester Stallone still has those turtles from Rocky 1.
Really?
In his house, yeah. Because they live a long time.
Right.
Jesus.
Wouldn't that be a cool piece of memorabilia?
They lived longer than his liver did. I do dialysis 4 times a day. Sorry.
All right. So that fight's off, and I mean they're still going with the main event of Renato Moicano versus the Korean Zombie. But what I liked about this other fight with Font and Lineker was even though the rest of the card is it's not offensive or anything, I'm still going to tune in. And remember, gambling makes any sport more interesting.
Yeah, it does.
But I just felt like it was the type of co-main event where it was almost like a second entree. It wasn't like an appetizer leading into the entree. It was almost like a second entree. So a
strong one.
Right, exactly.
So chicken parm and fettuccine
I was really looking forward to that 1-2 punch, man, and it's just not going to go down.
Just one note real quick on
our best to Lineker. Go ahead.
One note real quick because you highlighted what I wanted to, at least in part by the co-main event guys. I wasn't trying to be crude or mean to the UFC. This is a serious question. How far back in the calendar year do we have to go where there was a worse year for co-main events than this year? Now, part of that is strategic. Don't get me wrong. Like, for example, our Mr. John Lineker himself versus Corey Sandhagen. Remember, that was like kind of, we were talking about that as kind of being, the people special, if you will. It wasn't put in the co-main event, and they were doing a lot of that with
and
they were doing that a lot with sexy matches where we're getting like Brunson Theodorus and co-mains. We're like, what's going on here? I think we got like. And I like Rocco Martin and Damian Maia, of course, but they're like the co-main next week for ESPN. But they got like Formiga Benavidez. Like the sexier matchup is lower, so a lot of that is their choice. But at the end of the day, guys, facts is facts. We're feeling the stretch of the schedule. We're seeing it with these lighter cards. It's like George said, this wasn't a strong card. But for not being a strong card, it actually had a pretty decent co-main despite it being a rematch / last minute put together between Font and Lineker. But it kind of did that, kind of like what George said. And now without that, and again, no shade to Randy Brown, or you guys know I've been a Bam Bam champion since before he beat Sage. Yeah. No shade to those guys, but like, look at the co-main events we've had just this year alone, and we have to go back probably pretty far before we're hitting like some weird co-main, like, when UFC maybe like just started really stretching out their fight night schedule, and then maybe you got some, but even those were like, that was a great era. So I don't know.
Yeah, I would say that maybe they're piling on a little bit and strengthening the pay-per-views. And so they're maybe just letting the ESPN Plus shows, just kind of exist, where you have a main event and then whatever comes of it, okay. Like, look, my eyes are drawn towards Barberina. I mean, his fights are exciting.
Yeah, of course.
And Randy Brown's a really good dance partner.
Yeah.
But now, remember, I'm a junkie. The casual fan may look at this card and go, oh, I'll just check out the main event. Or I may just record them and check and speed through them on Sunday or whatever. I'm also looking at Andrea Lee and Montana De La Rosa, and that could have implications because how fast Valentina seems to want to be active, that could have implications on the next flyweight contender.
Yep.
And then Kevin Holland just sat in our studio about 2-3 weeks ago. So right away I want to see him perform because I related to him. I found out a little bit more about him. So I want to see him put all that to work. Alessio Di Chicrio was probably here about 18 months ago. Super nice guy as well. I know that they're going to put on a show. But again, this is me as a hardcore. Ige's on the card. Yoder, we've called her fights. Wyman, you know what I mean? But Wyman, I mean, we have the UFC 60 story that we can go back to with Matt Wyman. A lot of people just don't have that. But we'll see, man. That's the beauty of a UFC fight card is if you invest in it, there's usually a solid return.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because of the action that these athletes can perform. We got to go to a break. I just want to give you a couple quick notes here. The prelims will start on ESPN2 tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. So that's 1 p.m. Pacific. And the main card will be at 7 p.m. Eastern, and that's 4 p.m. Pacific. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
For rating all their snacks, they are Gorgeous George and Goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
So how'd your team do in the NBA draft last night? On the SiriusXM app, we curated team-by-team analysis and interviews just for you. Go to the SiriusXM app and search Draft Reactions. From what I could tell, guys, I mean, I skimmed it quickly, dude. It looked like the Atlanta Hawks were all over the place. Like they must have compiled draft picks. I could have sworn I saw them choose 3 times. So good on them. You know, I don't know that they're formidable in any way, so it's not like they have pieces to add on to. But that was very, very impressive. So good work there by them to put themselves in that position.
I think after 1 and 2, it was like,
yeah, I hear you. All right, yesterday I talked about Bellator and what they got going on. And I guess this just has to do with the branding of their show. So I'm just going to try my best to tell you what they have going on, and we'll kind of glance over the card real fast. But I want to give you the correct start times and, for everything that they have, because remember, they're on a delay. So the portion of the card that's called Bellator Europe 3 is headlined by Gegard Mousasi versus Rafael Lovato Jr. You can watch the fights on MMA Junkie at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. That'll be live. Melvin Manhoff is also on that part of the card. Now, if you also hear us call it Bellator 223, it's the same arena. It's the same venue, or whatever. There's nothing different about it. It's just that they've kind of split up the card, and they just call it two different things. That's kind of had been throwing me off a little bit. Now, this part of the card, they have their own prelims and their own main card. So here we go. For the Bellator 223 card, the prelims are on MMA Junkie at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, which is 8:30 a.m. Pacific. That's pretty damn early. And there's one fight card here. There's one fighter that I know we've dabbled with the rankings. She's a flyweight. Her name is Kate Jackson. We've actually had her on the show. But other than that, I don't see too many. The Denise Kielholtz, I don't see too many recognizable names. So this is where Bellator does a good job of stacking up local talent.
Oh, Galore Bufando. He had that crazy knockout over Charlie Ward where he just hip tossed the guy and slammed him face first, and he just went stiff like.
Oh yeah.
Galore Bufando from the Congo.
And by the way, remind me if we get a chance. Let me write it down. England talent, and I'm tying it into Dana White Contender Series.
Yes, sir. Good note. Good thing to write. I do the same thing. Write it down.
Go ahead, sorry. So now the main card is on Paramount and DAZN, and that's at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's on a tape delay because obviously 9 p.m. Eastern, you got to add 5 hours. They're not going to start the main card at 2 a.m. in London. That's Paul Daly versus Eric Silva. You got James Gallagher fighting on that fight card. Fabian Edwards. Charlie Ward is also on this card.
Charlie Ward.
So there you have it. So to make sense of it, the prelims on Bellator 223 lead into Bellator Europe 3, and then eventually to Bellator 223 staggered throughout the day. It's a mess, honestly. I just don't get why all this is done this way. I don't get why a guy like Paul Daly and Eric Silva, James Gallagher, why are they on tape delay? I thought DAZN, the whole point of it was you can start at any time at any part of the world. Annoyed me too. Paramount, I get it. If they're not invested in MMA, hey, Bellator's there, but we're slowly moving them, moving out of the Bellator business. All right, but I thought DAZN, the whole point was you get it live.
Now I know they have to. The reasoning behind it is they're serving the same thing. They're serving certain masters and there's certain TV deals in play. But do you guys know any of the details off that to the top of the head as far as, is this something we just got to get used to from here on out? Or is it going to last another year or so? And
I don't know, but
it'll be back to normal?
Here's what I want to say. I'm going to keep it as professional as I can. Right. I just don't care to find out why they do it. My whole point is more like, why are they doing? This is ridiculous.
Feels like they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Exactly. I want to watch. I'm one of the ones, Bellator, that just doesn't have a life and sits at home and watches fights. Right. So you got me, But I want to see it live. I want to bet on it, and I want to watch the result and high five someone or drink to it or, drown my sorrows or whatever. But I can't. I think I'm going to wait for a tape delay? I mean, I might if somebody goes, dude, you got to see this KO. Okay. And I'll probably fast forward to get to it. But I want to watch these fights live, and it's disappointing to me that I can't. I get to watch the title fight live, and I get to watch a few other fights live, but not these other ones. And all week they've been building it up. There was a press conference, and Gallagher and Labiano's team or whatever, they kind of got into it. And that's the stuff that's right down my alley, man. But I won't be able to partake like the way that I want.
Well, for sure they're aware of it because that was one of the main complaints and what I thought was one of the reasons why DAZN came aboard. And now you don't have to worry about those type of things. So I think this may just be some kind of special occasion. I don't see them doing that too often.
But see, that's one thing I like about Dana White is I would think you pick up the phone. Let's say the holdup is what, Bellator or DAZN?
Probably DAZN.
Dude, right. Scott Coker needs to pick up the phone and call to the head of DAZN and just go, this is dumb. Fix it. We got to fix this. I don't know what's in some contract or how this got negotiated or what kind of broadcast rules. I mean, this is dumb because people have fights on Facebook, people have fights on YouTube, people, where you get it live, and this is a major promotion, and that's a major fight for me. Paul Daly versus Eric Silva. It's not a title fight, I get it, but those are big names and those are exciting names. I don't want to watch them via tape delay. Just I don't know. I would imagine that can get squashed somehow.
There's got to be
that can get figured out.
There's got to be a reason. Scott Coker's not listening to this right now going, these guys are right. Why didn't I think of that? There has to be some, whether we think it's dumb or not, maybe it's part of a negotiation where maybe DAZN goes back and goes, guess what? You're dumb. We're doing you a favor. I mean, I don't know. But there's got to be a reason, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there probably is. All right. Well, that's that. Any thoughts on Mousasi, Lovato, Daly, Silva, Gallagher, or you excited about anything here? What's going on?
I went with all favorites to kind of save if people want to save that mass so I don't have to get into it. But and the breakdown, of course, in the main event up at MMAJunkie.com, got a video and an article on it. But something you guys touched on, and we were picking apart the prelims. I was noticing that Bellator seems to be taking these guys and repackaging them, which is not a bad thing. Galore Bofondo, a lot of athletic potential, like we mentioned. Now he's showing up in the UFC. And Oliver Enkamp, who, we saw him get iced by Danny Roberts, but that guy has some skills. He gave Nordine Taleb a hard fight. I can see why, the Swedes, I believe he's out of that region, are so high on him. So we see it in the UFC. You get thrown into the Shark Tank. Sometimes it's almost better to take other paths before going to the UFC, and a lot of complaints fighters have. We mentioned it before. John Lineker, though he's a unique case, is that they're not getting enough fights. It's been kind of a common complaint in a lot of fighter interviews. Some not so vocal about it than others, but it's a common theme. So is it really the worst thing in the world to go to like a Bellator? Even if you're on the prelims like here, you're still on a big card. It's getting a lot of local attention. They're only doing better things in Europe, right? I don't know. I think that's a good thing.
Did you bet Simtex
They are blowing
Silva?
up in Europe, Bellator, I heard. Huh?
Did you bet Simtex and Silva?
Mm-mm.
That fight particularly is the one that really interests me because if you can get the best Silva, then man, that's a hell of a fight. That's fun, right? But if you don't, or the flip side is you might get the wrestling Simtex. We never know. I don't know where these guys are at.
Yeah.
What they're thinking, but it could be an awesome
when
fight.
When Semtex fought Josh Koscheck, he was working with a guy named Kenny Johnson out of the
Kenny
Black House
Johnson.
gym. He had really, really polished up his takedown defense.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But he stopped working with him. But unless you're going through those reps, obviously you're going to be more susceptible to a takedown. Depends on how much he's worked on it. But if he can keep the fight on the feet, I like his chances. Now Silva's a beast. He's a beast when he throws down, man. He can light you up pretty good. But at the same time, his chin's been worn a little bit, and I don't think he's as technical as Daly. Like Daly is technical,
but explosive
and wild. But he can always come back to technical, and I think that's due to just experience and calm. Whereas Eric Silva sometimes gets a little bit emotional. But Silva on the ground could present problems for Daly with a lot of time. If it's early in the fight, with a lot of time on the clock, and if they're kind of in the middle. So it's got to be a certain set of skills because Daly does have certain skills where he can get up or stop takedowns. But again, it's how many reps he's had or whatever.
Silva on the right vitamin plan too. But honestly, guys, about betting though, I like Daly. I like even Mousasi enough to put money on them. It's just the prices aren't right to me. They're a little too high, and we see some wacky stuff go on. A lot of variables and intangibles in Bellator. So I'm not too confident. I'm actually, full disclosure, I'm actually staying away from those fights. I'm just going to enjoy them. Mm-hmm. That and it, kind of like George said, it doesn't make me want to bet them as much. Kind of to your point, when you're just not even sure if you're going to be able to watch them or how, and it's just a big. But yeah, even if that wasn't the case, I'm actually staying away from those fights, guys.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about this UFC card. We got our daily debate and, of course, Bare Knuckle. And don't forget, in the second hour, we have a couple guests headed your way. So don't touch that dial. It's the MMA Junkie Radio Show on Fight Nation, Channel 156.
mantles are covered with participation awards. They have boxes of gold stars that they purchase themselves. They are the legends and demand your respect. Here are George and Goes.
All right. More bad news.
Yeah. It better not be what I think it is.
No, it's not.
By the way, thank you.
It has to do with UFC 239.
Oh no! What is it? Break it to me. I see. Nolan, you have Nolan King, our colleague at MMA Junkie here.
He's the Grim Reaper, huh?
UFC 239. No, you know what? I wanted to scare you guys because obviously that's Jones
and
Santos.
Oh, you son of a bitch!
But it isn't Jones and Santos.
Okay.
But this is, Nolan King retweeted it.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why I went to Nolan King in just a second.
All
but
right.
it's from Brett Okamoto about half an hour ago. He says, Sean O'Malley's fight at UFC 239 is off after he tested positive for trace amounts of ostarine again, per his Instagram. Sounds like a similar situation to John Jones. USADA will not sanction him, says O'Malley, but the Nevada Commission needs to hold a hearing.
What the hell?
Yep. Now, the reason I went to Nolan King, and I'm pretty sure these are gone by now, but it's probably a good idea to just give the guy a follow.
Yeah.
For one, he's our newest colleague. It's at MMA_Kings. It wasn't him that put this. I'm sorry. It was Eric Spicely, and Nolan retweeted him. He said, guys, I have 4 tickets to UFC Greenville, so anyone who wants to come meet me at Starbucks outside the Hyatt Regency, I'm giving them away in pairs. So if maybe it's not too late, follow at Eric Spicely, but I saw that on Nolan's
Eric Spicely's
handle.
such a nice guy.
I thought Nolan was maybe covering the event for us or something like that.
I may have to treat Eric Spicely to some Starbucks if he ever comes here, especially if he does well this weekend. Sprinkled him on a nice little dog price. But
is he still a syndicate guy?
I'm not sure where he was training on this one, but he's been putting together some good work since he's been out of the UFC. Quiet, but he's on a 2 TKO.
Didn't he give Santos a loss? Now that I think about it,
he did. He upsetted Santos, which looked good at the time. It looks better now.
I know.
And he one of the guys he beat also was a guy who gave Brad Tavares a tough fight at UFC 203, Chao Magalhaes, out of that Nova and Yao camp. He recently KO'd him and another UFC vet recently. So
and shout out to I mentioned Marvin Vittori's name earlier. He actually lost to Izzy, but by split decision.
Yeah.
And Brad didn't get finished by Izzy either. You know, considering like what a destructive force Izzy's been, a couple of the guys that we've gotten to know on this show, at least went out there and went the full 15.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I think right now is a good time for our daily debate. Hit it, Andre.
The brothers Garcia seemingly can't agree on anything.
Everybody knows it's duck season.
Rabbit season.
Duck season.
Rabbit season.
Whether it's food,
Less filling.
Tastes great.
Less filling.
Tastes great.
gambling,
Always bet on black.
I like red.
Black.
Red.
Black.
Red.
Black, dummy.
or even social media.
Instagram.
Snapchat.
Instagram.
Snapchat.
The same applies to the biggest stories in MMA. Time for MMA Junkie Radio's Daily Debate.
Today's hashtag daily debate question for at MMA Junkie Radio. If you were guaranteed every MMA event, including UFC, Bellator, and One Championship, as well as every event in boxing, pro wrestling, and bare knuckle for $100 a month, would you sign up? Yes or no? But give me more than that, fellas. How about you, Dan?
This includes UFC pay-per-views.
Yep.
Okay, we're still maybe averaging we
because
could
it
say
says
one
every
a month
MMA
there.
event, yeah.
Those are getting up to like 60 or whatever, or 65.
There's 60
right?
on
Getting
ESPN
that
Plus.
HD and all that, yeah. Everything else, I'm a hardcore. Even if I wasn't working this year media job, I would be a junkie, as we like to call here on this show, guys. So whether I'm a media guy or a junkie, you got my $100.
How about you guys?
I have a question first. All right. This $100 that I'm paying, do I now have this super streaming service and I'm getting it all from one place, or do I still need to give my cable company
a super
their
streaming
bill?
service.
Hell yeah, for $100?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I cut the cord on cable, I think. Enough
you
with
do?
them. Yeah. Because I got the majority of what I watch here.
How you gonna watch the NBA Finals, NFL football?
I go to Dan's house.
I could see Goes putting
He's got
all his cable stuff in a Goes probably put all his cable stuff in a boat like Game of Thrones and like kick it off to sea and then light a fiery arch bow and
He makes a good point.
Well, I'll tell you what. I submitted this question, right? And I didn't put much thought into it as far as like doing the math.
Okay.
Once it got pitched, I was like, oh God, am I gonna look stupid or what?
Okay.
But I was hoping for that result right there of 65 and 35%. I'm okay with that. I was scared of like a 99-1, which means, of course, you big dummy. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But check it out.
Okay.
Like Dan said, just the UFC alone, that's 60.
If there's only one per month.
And sometimes there's 2 per month.
Yeah.
And I think they average usually 13 a year. So 1 month, it's usually December, I think is the double up month.
Okay.
Well, to make it easy, we'll just say 1 a month. That's 60. And then you get every WWE. And remember, if you have WWE Network, that's 10. So that's 70. The Zone, I think, is $10 a month. That's 80. Boxing, it's not like we're ordering all the boxings, but to know that whatever boxing match comes up, we're covered. That's kind of nice. Whatever bare knuckle comes up, we're covered. That's nice. They threw in boxing, by the way. When I submitted it, I didn't throw in boxing.
Okay.
But if they're going to throw in boxing, would it also include the submission undergrounds? You know what I mean? Like,
take it easy.
Well, I don't know, because back in the day, I really wanted to watch some of these metamorphoses. They kind of went away, and I know some of the other ones are on UFC Fight Pass. But remember, you got UFC Fight Pass and ESPN Plus, so that 80's already becoming 90.
Right.
But you get some of these other ones. It looks like, especially if it's just one username, one password, one fucking credit card, $100 a month. How can you pass that up, right?
Yeah, you're probably around the same. And I don't want to step on the results that you're about to give here, but I was actually surprised the result. Not the split. The split, like you said, George, I agree that's normal, 60-30 split. I was just thinking it was the other way, but I'll let you.
Okay. So the way it was the 65 was no, they wouldn't pay it, and 35% said yeah.
We crazy?
Now it could be.
I don't know now.
Well, it could be that some people out there are like, bro, I'm just MMA, bare knuckle, boxing, submission, wrestling, grappling. Excuse me, I'm out. Well, I could see their point because between UFC Fight Pass, ESPN Plus, I guess DAZN, and remember, what if they're just UFC only? Then they're not even worried about DAZN. Then now you're talking about 60, 5 and 5. It doesn't add up.
But Dan, don't you sometimes like some of your friends will order the pay-per-view or you get it? So maybe there's a few of those, right, where they're not feeling that cost every month. So they're like, well, I'm kind of losing out because Tim sometimes gets them. He gets half of them.
I don't know about you guys, but my friends, that's all kind of gone down. Like our pay-per-view watching, whether
since streaming.
Yeah, since streaming, most of them will just come over to my house now, and even then, those numbers have dwindled. I don't want to speak with my sample size to everybody, but because of the question that this arises, the problem of this saturation, all these different outlets that are pulling us all these different ways, I think there's some real fatigue there, guys. So I don't know if it helps that it helps that any more or less.
Yeah, I remember one year Bellator had a pay-per-view. That's just one of those that you don't budget for.
Right.
Conor versus Floyd, that's one of those that you don't budget for,
right.
But again, you get caught up in those. And I remember there was a couple of metamorphoses that got, like, I really wanted to see Eddie Bravo and Royler Gracie, where you're just sitting there, do I pull the trigger? Remember a couple times we said, WrestleMania, oh, what do I do? Do I pull the trigger? Now you got it all there at your disposal. And it's just one time, you're not jumping around from all these different services.
Right.
So, I don't know.
And the one takeaway.
Maybe if I had said 80, it would have been 50-50.
Well, regardless, whatever number you put, let's say $100 is reasonable. It's $100 essentially is what we do the math to follow our quote-unquote sport. How much do you have to pay a month to be a basketball fan or a football fan, guys?
Yeah. True. Here's a couple responses. At you wish to know says for $65 per month you get high-speed internet, 4 digital HD TV boxes, all sorts of satellite channels, NBA, NFL, NHL, boxing, including fight channels, and of course porn channels too. Where's that deal?
Wow.
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know about
Never heard of that.
I mean, how can you get NFL? The NFL package alone is like $300 a year, right?
Is it that much?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay,
wow,
at Nuts Keith says, considering I spend 1,000 years as it is, I'd jump on that deal in a heartbeat. Others are saying, let me see, this one comes from at 12 Combat. I mean, that would be $1,200 per year. That's a bit much if I'm honest, especially for something like a monthly subscription. Pretty good thought out answers, a little bit on each side.
Yeah.
So there you have it. There's today's Daily Debate brought to you by the at MMA Junkie Radio team. All right, guys. One more break, right? Yeah, we got to do that. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156. Stay close. We'll be right back. We got some X's and O's to go over, some preview picks for this weekend.
goes. And this is MMA Junkie Radio.
All right, guys. Any last-minute thoughts on Chan Sung Jung versus Renato Moicano? Moicano's a minus 213 favorite.
Wow.
Chan Sung Jung plus 167. That's the main event at UFC on ESPN plus 12.
I'm betting Korean Zombie.
Yeah, I got Jung at plus 165. I figured the money would start coming in on Moicano. Not the most confident pick, but I feel like it's dog or pass. I don't feel like you can be too confident on either guy.
Brian Barberina minus 260. Randy Brown about plus 220.
You know I'm on the Barberina train. I'm real reluctant about giving parlays, but I always play some fun ones, George, as do you, and I can tell you that Barberina will be a piece for mine for whatever that's worth.
He's that much better than Brown, though. That seems almost kind of a 3-1 favorite.
I feel like Brown has to submit him, which he does have some like ninja choke guillotines with his long frame. You know, we haven't seen Brown in a minute. That could be a good thing because he's really athletic and very talented as a martial artist, so we could see more skills to the table. But it's also a bad thing because I think Brown needs to kind of find his way into a fight, and so does Barberina, except Barberina just kind of keeps building, and you really got to stop him with a perfect shot. He always has a ridiculous chin. Like, he probably should have been knocked out like 5 times before he actually got knocked out, if we're being honest, guys. So the question is, does Barberina still have that durable chin even after suffering that knockout of after the war? Or maybe does he kind of turn a corner and, you know, Randy Brown catches him with a perfect shot? But outside of the perfect shot, guys, I don't see him submitting him, and I definitely don't see him outworking a guy like Barberina. You know, he's that southpaw stance, pressure, and we saw a guy like Bilal Muhammad, orthodox stance granted, but kind of a similar thing. You know, Bilal might, you know, go to decision a lot, at least at this level, but Bilal's a man, he's a workhorse. He's going to put it on you. He's going to fight for your money. He's got a crazy output. Barberina,
solid Twitter follow, too, Bilal.
Oh, I love Bilal. He's a great guy all around. Big fan of Bilal.
All right. How about our guy, Dan Ige? He's plus 130 against
some promises.
Kevin Aguilar. And I've been seeing that. I think he's, what is he, the face of death, or what's his nickname?
The Angel of Death.
Angel of Death?
Dude, Kevin Aguilar is no joke.
I've seen him at LFA, yeah.
It's tough, man. This is on my avoid list. I took a shot on Dan Ige, but it's all bias.
So did
guys.
I.
It's all bias. In fact, I was on my buddy Dan Levy's podcast. Shout out to Half the Battle, and he asked me. He actually brought this match up before it was booked, and I said, "Don't." He did a little fantasy matchmaking, you know, a little bit of Joe Silva's shoes, if you will. And I'm like, "Oh, don't do that to my boy Dan Ige. I think that'd be a tough fight because Aguilar shows he can counter wrestle, and he's always been a dangerous counter puncher." That being said, Dan Ige's got heart. We've seen him like come out and on days where he's been gassed. He admitted that he didn't want to fight after that Jordan Griffin fight. He woke up not feeling well. But what did he do after losing the second round? He dug deep. He come back and he won that third round. So bias aside, he's kind of the guy. That's the kind of guy I want to put my money on. A guy that's going to wrestle and fight for your money. From that instance, but man, I think the line is right. I think Kevin Aguilar should be favored, but biased admitted here, guys. I'm taking Dan Ige.
All right.
He said he'll crack the top 15 by this time next year, or was it by the end of the year?
I'm not sure, but, you know, I actually heard a really good, I don't know if we had him on the show for a minute, but Brendan Fitzgerald, play-by-play commentator, he does his own podcast, Fitz and the Fighter, and he did a long form with Dan Ige, and it was really interesting, man. I even learned some, and we had Ige in here all the time. We know him pretty well, you know, and but yeah, he said some really interesting stuff. You guys are right.
Okay. Montana De La Rosa and Andrea Lee, the winner here, could be looking at a title shot. Who do you like here, Goose?
De La Rosa. Andrea Lee, I think.
Wait. Let me give you the odds. I didn't give you guys the odds yet. Lee's actually the favorite. Mm-hmm. She comes in at minus 190. De La Rosa plus 175.
I think Lee's a decent fighter, but I think people kind of jump on the hype train a little bit. And she's had personal issues to battle through for a while now. I don't feel like this is going to be her night.
Wow. Do you like Montana De La Rosa?
Yeah.
Oof.
Underdog money.
I think I'm on the other side.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Chipotle?
I think, yeah.
Ooh, no.
I think Lee can handle herself where De La Rosa is very strong. Look, her ground game's no joke. Mm-hmm. I'll give her that, but Lee's stand-up is more formidable.
You remind me that I owe you a Chipotle card, and I think that you're going to be even richer on Chipotle because I'm like you. Not only did I pick Lee, but I felt better as the week gone on. Kind of scared me, though, because I'm like Goes, where like all that hype, you know, like you were saying is true. And that, for someone like me, that makes me kind of like...
It's not that she's bad.
You know, dude, no.
Too much.
But yeah, and that makes me put some healthy skepticism. So I was like, do I really want to pick her? When I was doing staff picks, I saw people like yourself, other people who I respect, taking De La Rosa. And I was looking at it, and, you know, talking to De La Rosa, I almost forgot that we interviewed her on here. She's so quiet and kind of, I don't want to say like typical or vanilla in a bad way, but from her style to how she carries herself. But when she fights and in her post-fight interview, she carries like a quiet fury, man. She's fighting for her kid. She's got she's got like a mom fury. I don't know if that's a term, but she's really got that. But she's just going to have to
And now maybe there's a relief that the husband got caught, and that's at least behind her. Because remember, this guy was a fugitive up until a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
For Lee, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm talking about.
You're talking about De La Rosa. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And I'm just saying that, like, her interview or her style can be kind of, vanilla. And I don't want to say like in a bad way. You kind of forget. But she fights like she fights like a mom fury. Like she's like, she gets on the mic and she's like, hey, we should be getting paid more. I'd like to get paid for what a ranked fighter is, and it makes me kind of want to root for her. But it's tough. Andrea Lee, for all the weird marketing and all the crazy stuff attached to her, you know what, she can fight, man. She's got a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a brown belt in Judo, real Muay Thai technique. She flows through the phases, and like Montel De La Rosa, I feel like she's gonna have to really fight that perfect fight, and I don't think she can submit her, but she's gonna have to really control rounds. I don't know if she's gonna be able to do it looking at the wrestling, but I can see why people would take De La Rosa. It's not crazy.
And shout out to Mark De La Rosa, who's her husband and not a fugitive.
That's right.
We did get confused.
Right. Yeah,
there.
I got scared too. I was like, "Oh, what did Mark do?
What did he do?" Yeah.
Oh no.
There was an article here from Goes and Richard Hunter's interview with Chris Lieben. They did a recap, and the title of the recap was just he says, "We'll call it not classy." He was a little disappointed in Paulie Malignaggi's behavior. Now, I don't want to touch so much on that.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people can agree the spitting, a lot of the stuff just went too far, right? But here's something that he did say in that article that was recapped by Stephen Morocco. Shout out to the magnificent Morocco. He says, this is Chris Lieben, you can't hit a guy 500 times. You can't wing overhands off the top of somebody's head in this sport. Trust me, I tried it in my first fight. Good thing it worked, because I don't think I was hitting with that hand again. Do you think the one fight that Artem Lobov does have in bare knuckle can be important over the one time that Malignaggi doesn't have? And remember, Lobov just fought 2 months ago. Malignaggi hasn't fought at all. Granted, I know he trains, but he hasn't fought in competition in about 2 years, in over 2 years. So could that be one little intangible there that was very, very important to note?
Hell yeah, it is.
It is on paper for sure.
Okay. All right. So we are going to go to a break. It's the top of the hour break. We'll be right back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156.
Their fighting style is described as fluffy, but their radio style is on point. Here are George Goes and Dan.
Man, Andre cracks me up. He always sneaks in that Hall & Oates action.
That's his thing.
It is, and I don't hate it because I grew up on it. But I guess it's not like we're submitting music to him, right?
Yeah.
He's free to do whatever he wants.
I like it. I like that being his thing.
Yeah.
Unless he thinks it's super funny, then it's not as funny.
He's got me
But
to
if
pop
he digs
almost.
it, then it's cool.
He's got me to pop
I
almost
dig it,
every
guys.
break.
So no worries. I dig it.
Yeah, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater one before, and I forget what the one before that was, but got me to pop there too. Great job.
Let's take control of these next couple songs.
Okay.
What do you want, Dan, on the next one? Pick a song.
Put me on the spot. Why don't you guys pick a genre and I'll get a song.
Hip hop.
90s. Can we do Juicy? Biggie Smalls.
All right, there you go. So Andre,
You got it.
Write these down. Goes.
I'm in the mood for some Red Hot Chili Peppers today.
Pick a song.
That I
Roller
can do.
Coaster.
All right. How about you, Laura?
Pick a song from a band.
Anuel, Matchbox 20.
Matchbox 20.
Oh,
Can't come
Matchbox.
back
I like 90s.
Right,
There we go.
have
What's
it.
up?
Yeah.
We're coming back to this.
Oh, yeah.
We can come back to Matchbox 20. All right, so you got those. Those are 3 songs we're submitting, Andre.
You got it.
Goes song makes me think of the movie Bulletproof with Adam Sandler and Damon Wayans.
Not very many people saw that movie, and it had its moments. It was funny. What makes Andre mad? How come he never gets mad? We've been pushing his buttons for like 2 weeks. He never gets pissed.
I don't know. It's not a bad thing, though, right?
Yeah, I guess. But
Not a bad thing at all. And I don't know. Nothing really gets me mad.
Come on, man. There's got to be something.
Maybe the Red Sox winning since I'm a Yankee fan, but other than that, no. That's just irritating. It's not.
Did you
angry.
take pleasure in the Bruins losing? The Boston Bruins?
I'm impartial. It's hockey, man. I'm Filipino. There's like it doesn't compute.
You're Filipino. I didn't know there was a rich history in baseball for Filipinos.
Oh no, we're a little too far away from that. Soccer, we're starting to make a history. Basketball,
the Bruins are a hockey team.
Yeah, that's why it doesn't compute for me.
But
or
you can't play
like
the Filipino card. You can't go, bro, I'm Filipino. We're not into hockey. Because if I were to go to the Philippines, which I've never been to, it's not like when I land, they're going to go, tickets to the baseball game, tickets to the baseball game. You see what I'm saying?
Bet you Chipotle dinner that you find someone that's Filipino that's deeply into hockey.
Filipinos love basketball. They have a professional basketball league.
Of course,
that I know for a fact. But I never knew that Filipinos were this a country that just followed baseball. Did you?
A little bit. Only because I know a few Filipinos and they do like baseball.
Really?
So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is true.
All right. Well,
trust me,
that
I
didn't go
started
too
this
well for
wanting
me.
to make him upset, but it is true.
All right, I'm gonna
Filipino, so I feel like I know Andre more now. Thank you, Andre.
I'm gonna blast through a few more fights, and you guys can chime in if you want with
do it.
a lean or a breakdown, however you want to go about it. What about Kevin Holland at -210 and Alessio Di Chicrio at +190?
I took Holland on the picks. I believe this is part of the staff picks, right? Which is on the main card here, and I don't disagree with that. He's just such a hard guy to get a beat on. I do like that he went out here to sit with Syndicate John Wood. I gotta imagine it's gonna put more process because he's comfortable striking. He just strikes, he's got to come from that kung fu style. He's got his own crazy style. But if he can survive 3 rounds with Thiago Santos, it's not like he can't be in the mix. You know what I'm saying? It's just weird. Like Kevin Holland never went to decision until like his Contender Series fight. That was his first decision, and then he's had 2 in the UFC, I believe, or at least 1 went to the 3rd round. So it's hard to see where he's at, but I think Di Chirico, from the gambling perspective, is really live here. I think it's dog or pass, especially if it goes to decision. Di Chirico is able to take down Julian Marquez a bunch of times, and I think that's why the judges gave it to him. Although I'm a little biased, I scored it for Marquez. And if you look at it, Mearshart, even when he was gassed, was able to take Holland down and stay out of his guillotines. Granted, Mearshart's a really good grappler, a better grappler than Di Chirico. But if Di Chirico can stay out of that guillotine, he may have a path to upset here.
Chirico in that Julian Marquez fight, to me, was like right time, right place on a lot of exchanges.
Yeah, it had to have been.
So I'm going to go Kevin Holland, but he's right. It's not like one where you're just slamming your fist down on the table and telling people, go make that bet right now.
By the way, you had Adelaide Bird, and I don't got anything against Sal D'Amato, but he's definitely had some crushing scorecards for gamblers in his past. Both of them were on duty that night.
So how about Yuri Kondo versus Ashley Yoder?
I actually went against Ashley Yoder.
Really?
Wow. We've called Ashley Yoder fights. We've been privy to her career.
I wish she just had more pop in the strikes. Like,
I kept
her
thinking it would
techniques
develop.
aren't bad. And she's pretty tough, you know what I mean?
She trains hard.
I just wish she had a little bit more, like, of a threat. Like, I feel like again, I've obviously never been in there, but how many times have you ever heard a fighter go, "Oh, I've tasted their best punch, and I knew I'd be okay"? And I'm like, really? With 4-ounce gloves? You really felt that? Like, wow. And I feel like there's certain fighters that are like that, and I feel like Ashley can sometimes be that. Now, I've also seen a mean streak out of Ashley, and I don't know if it's like a here we go, and if she volume strikes you, then of course I think she can put you out. But let's ask the expert right here. Who do you like in this one?
This is another one I'm surprised to see, at least on the Junkie staff perspective. We seem pretty split on that. I don't know what the numbers are, but it seemed pretty split, maybe not a half and half. I like Kondo when she first came in. She seemed like a Japanese fighter who didn't have knockout power, but she puts out that kickboxing volume that'll win rounds, like a Tisha Torres or a what's her name, Caitlin Chukagian, if you will. But I think she's been exposed, guys, and I hate to say that, but like you look at it, even read her bio, she really only did karate before she did pro wrestling, and not hating on pro wrestling, but that's not exactly a martial art. And in that martial art, or in pro wrestling, I should say, she was known for being kind of a karate girl. That was her gimmick. And in her own, bio and on the UFC website, she says, well, I actually have to get it emailed to me now because they don't offer it on the UFC website yet. But she's like, I could never picture myself as a pro fighter, and still kind of don't. And then you see her going against Pauliana Botelho, who's pretty athletic but raw, like just kind of crushes her. And she was able to go 3 rounds with Yan Jianan, who is another Chinese prospect to be on the look for behind the Weili Zhangs of the world. But yeah, man, I think she just got exposed. I don't really think there's much there. And I think because you could make an argument that Yoder lost 4 fights, not 3 officially in the UFC, it makes it tough, to get behind her. But I will say in her last fight, man, she was able to kind of stand up to the boxing volume of an Amanda Bobby Cooper and was countering from that southpaw stance pretty well in some of those exchanges. Like her striking, I agree with George, like maybe a little more pop, which is a lot to ask, I know, for that weight class. But I did see improvements, though, last time, which kind of I don't remember seeing. But when I went back to look, I did see improvements there. It's just the wrestling. She's going to have a huge advantage over this girl if it's the mat. I just don't know if I can trust Yoder to take it there. I picked Yoder, but this is a stay away from me.
Rose was able to develop one-punch power, and she's got a similar frame to Ashley Yoder. You know what I mean? Sure. So it's not just in the looks where you're thinking, oh, man, she's just ripped and packing a punch or anything like that. I mean, I'm going to go with Yoder in this fight, but I want to see her kind of take the next step up.
You know who she reminds me of?
Who?
Kylan Curran. She's got a lot of good skills. All right, and there's moments where she has brilliance, but she can't put it together every single time. So
she's gotten split decisions a couple times too. Yeah.
Yep.
How about Matt Wyman? What did you do for Wyman and Pena? How far did you have to go back, man?
That was fun to go back.
A whole new set of announcers and cutmen and everything.
It was fun because I forgot to go back for Matt Wyman.
Was his last fight?
Yeah, but I went back to even his first fight because I was trying to find him against Southpaws.
Was it against Spencer Fisher?
Yep, that was the only Southpaw he faced. He got knocked out. That was brutal, man. Spencer Fisher was like trash talking him. McCarthy had to get him, separate him between rounds, and it really pissed Wyman off. And Matt Wyman just with blood on his face said, come on, bring it. Got hit with the right check hook, got wobbled, but tried to play it off, waved to the crowd, said, I'm okay. And right out as he did that, Spencer Fisher did a flying knee. That's apropos because we've seen it with Adam Borix and Aaron Pico, of course, Yoel Romero, Chris Weidman. That was brutal. So that's the only southpaw he's faced. He's faced taller guys like Cole Miller, but he was able to take Cole down and make it a frustrating fight because Wyman has underrated jiu-jitsu. Pena wrestles, though, man. I don't know and Pena's been doing this whole camp at AKA. So unless Wyman can catch him by submission, which I did throw a flyer because it's like plus 1,100, and we've seen Matt Wyman like submit guys who were undefeated at the time, like Paul Sass.
And he's scrappy. He's one of those that I feel like gives you the camp and the fight.
Yeah.
You can't go, oh man, you mailed it in.
But like you said, George, man, that 5 years or whatever it was off was just too much. So it's a wild card. I picked Pena, but I'm not putting Pena in any plays, and I may or may not be sprinkling on some Matt Wyman there.
All right, how about you guys? You care about that fight? You have an interest?
It's been too long. I mean, I wanted to bet Matt Wyman, but it's just been too long. Like, think about anybody doing their job, being away for that long, and coming back in. Like, you're gonna have some kind of
run. Oh yeah. 5 years, man. Alan Crowder and Jairzinho Rosenstruck, Ariane Lipsky, Molly McCann, Duran Wynn, Eric Spicely, Anderson Dos Santos, Andre Ewell, Do you want to talk about any of those? So I'm not sure we'll have time to cover them all, but is there anything you see in any of these matchups that's worth keeping an eye on?
I took Rosenstruck, who, sounds like a Jewish striker, but he's the first UFC fighter from Suriname, which sounds like it's not a country, but it is. And he can kickbox pretty well there.
I was just about to say they have good kickboxers.
Yeah, there we go. And so taking him there, taking Anderson Dos Santos, who sounds like one of those first era Reebok T-shirts. Remember, like Anderson, like Giblert, like that sounds like someone like the Anderson Dos Santos T-shirt sounds like something that would have been in production. Took him, but I stayed away. Mainly stay away on those for me, George.
Okay.
But if you want details on those fights, like the Protect Your Neck podcast on iTunes or at mixedmartialanalyst.com if you want more.
There you go. All right. Now, did you guys see any of the video from the opening of we talked about the UFC Apex Center opening. The UFC also opened another building. It's in Shanghai, China. Did you guys see that? That they opened it? Dana White was there, and they had the Willie Zhang and Jessica Andrade press conference as well. Nice pop they had over there in China. But what did you happen to watch?
I saw a little bit of the small videos, but I thought they were going to live stream, and I didn't see that.
Okay. It looks pretty impressive.
I definitely want to go back and watch the tour. I was watching some of Dana's stuff in Shanghai, and it's crazy how different Shanghai looks. Like, when I was there, it's almost like 20 years ago. The first time I was there was summer of 2000, and those big buildings, like, they were just being built at the time, and they were very nouveau as far as architecture, and I actually got lucky. I was actually sitting next to an architect who just happened to be in my martial arts troupe that I was with at the time, explaining to me how they were kind of breaking those barriers. So I definitely want to see this big performance institute, but and I'm sure you guys definitely already weighed in on it. Obviously, we all went on that same tour, but the Apex for even though it's not nearly done, I was still pretty impressed with that as far as that goes. But I shared a lot of your sentiments. We talked, George. I was on the same page with you as far as the vibe of the
compared
fights.
To the other one. Yeah. It was.
You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of all those late '80s, early '90s movies that tried to do the cage fighting, like the best of the best twos, like that dark nightclub environment. It actually reminded me of. Do you remember Cradle of the Grave with Jet Li and DMX? And it had Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell.
Rings a bell. Yeah.
And because it was like a nightclub scene, and there was like an illegal fight going down, and what it really was a cage fight, and they had Randy versus Chuck, or Chuck versus Tito, which was funny at the time because in the movie they're raising Tito's hand, and Chuck's like, oh, and Tito's like, yeah, and it was funny because he went 0-2, right? At least at that time, maybe not as funny anymore. And Randy Couture had the speaking line in it, and he's like, come on, get in the ring, and it's in his voice, like, and it was just, anyways. But it reminded me very much of that like nightclub underground fight feel.
At the Tough Gym, did you like the ability to kind of move around and commiserate and in between fights versus here you felt like you were a little bit more like positioned and like
I actually
granted you and I had each other to talk to, and I had Big Mac on the other side, but
I bring food there.
Actually, George,
Ryan McKinnon.
Hey, shouts to Ryan, by the way. Always great to see him. But no, it was I actually tenfold actually liked Apex better. But here's what I do like, because here's what you guys can identify with. Not just because you've seen way more than me, obviously, but seen fights in that tough gym where you have more of that intimate feel. I believe the example you used, George, was the squeaking of the mat, right? But it was because it felt like you were watching a sparring session. For example, not everybody's been lucky to watch sparring sessions, much less high-level or behind-closed-door ones. I know you guys have been able to do that, whether it be through amateur tryouts or watching the pro practices at Extreme Couture. You guys have been through your fair share. So you guys have kind of seen that feel. So it's kind of cool when you get that feel, but the stakes are just ridiculously high.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, look, again, I'm comparing we'll call it a 10 to a 9.5.
Yeah.
I am not saying one was superior to the other,
right.
and I had there was a lot of things I really liked about the Apex Center. I wasn't sweating my balls off. I wasn't.
Yeah.
My tailbone wasn't hurting or anything like that. I mean, it's a little nice proper venue for sure. And the fact that now the public can come, that's pretty cool. You can share that with a few people. And by the way,
you think that's really going to be a thing though?
Well, here's the thing. In fact, let me chime in on that. I felt bad because I tweeted that. When Dana White said it, I tweeted it.
Right, same here.
A few others did as well. And there was a guy named Donnie Gonzalez who went down there and he said he got turned around. He got turned back.
Uh-huh.
And I saw a few empty seats. Now, it doesn't mean everyone's sitting at the same time. So I don't know if the UFC just goes, okay, this is going to be out of control. We got to stop this or what. I would suggest if you want to go, because they did say that they can, that it's going to be open for others, is just go early or call the UFC. I don't know. I'm gonna ask the PR and see if they're gonna have a guest.
They're gonna make an adjustment.
How are they gonna figure this out?
Bleachers or something, right?
Well, Dana says he wants
what they have there.
It's right now 300 can fit or 150. Did they say? But they can make it for 1,500. That I remember.
Yeah.
So and he says it sounds like he's leaning more towards the bigger end of it for free. I mean, that's a great Tuesday night.
Hell yeah, it is.
You know what I mean? But anyway, I don't want anyone like Jonathan McDonald, formerly John of South Carolina. He was going to go, but then he said that he saw an announcement saying no, that they were already filled to capacity.
I saw that.
So I don't know how the UFC is going to fill it because, again, not to sell out the UFC, but I saw a few empty seats. It didn't look like it was filled to capacity to me. So I don't know if they have like a turnstile and they're counting or if they just were trying to avoid a big mess or what.
They could have at least took Dana White's giant bowl of Eclipse gum from his office and offered it to the people.
That was a lot. That was a lot. Yeah.
That was so 2003, wasn't it? Guys, it doesn't get much more 2000. That was everyone was talking about the Floyd poster, all these things, or picking on Dana for the nobody mentioned the Eclipse gum. To me, that was peak. Everybody talks about they're poking fun at they're tasting metal and everything's new metal from that era. It is true. 2003, I think is that golden era for Dana White in his head because with all the technology, all the new stuff they're unveiling to us, I'm like, why do we have 2003 fucking gum over here from 2003?
And there was a lot of it too.
you know, some poor.
His office was nice. Everything they had there was nice, man. I did want to say one last thing. Did you guys catch that big canvas that was hanging?
Yeah.
Before you went upstairs?
Yeah.
I had a little moment with him where I was staring at it. I was taking a picture and he goes, pretty cool, huh? Because Dana was on this tour with everybody. So he was holding doors open. He was guiding everybody through it. And I think you guys had moved up because you guys are moving a little faster, and I was just a little slower because of my knee. But he goes, pretty cool, huh? And I go, yeah, it is pretty cool. He goes, that's from UFC 200. I go,
no, it ain't.
No, I go, UFC 200 had a yellow canvas. He goes, no, that was UFC 100. I go, no, it was 200. He goes, he looked at me, he goes, trust me, he goes, it was, and then I told myself, why am I going to get in a pissing match? And plus, we're all kind of moving.
I didn't know you started that. I knew that.
So then,
okay, wow.
So then I looked at the canvas and I go, that looks like your last show, And he goes, no, he goes, it's the other way around. And I go, all right, I kind of went all right, but I knew 200 was yellow. What I didn't know was the other one, where if that could be 100, but I didn't think it was because it didn't look big enough, and I could have sworn 100 was in the bigger cage. Mm-hmm. So we went up there, we did the whole deal, and then when we came downstairs, he goes, "You were right." He goes, "200 was the yellow," And I go, I kind of already knew that, but I just didn't want to be that dude, And
I didn't see you. I heard that argument.
That's why he goes, yeah. He goes, you're a veteran. He goes, you're a veteran. And I go, yeah. I go, the gray. I'm turning 50. He goes, you're turning 50. So we kind of had a little bit of a sidebar there, but it was pretty funny, man. All right, we have to head to a break here because when we come back, we're gonna talk to Patrick Mix, who, man, impressed the hell out of me. Cost me some money this past weekend when he submitted Ricky Bandejas, and he made it look quick and surgeon-like. So we'll talk to him when we come back. He'll be followed by Sean Wheelock. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, channel 156.
pack a knuckle sandwich and some punch. The boys are about to break down the latest in MMA news. Here are George, Goes, and Dan.
Well, congratulations to Patrick Mix. He got that win over Ricky Bandejas, and it was this past Friday at Bellator 222. He joins us now on the hotline. What's up, Patrick Mix? How you doing? Congratulations on your big win.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. How you doing, buddy?
Good. I'm going to tell you something right now that I would never tell you to your face, but I called you a fool immediately after that fight ended. Do you want to know why? Because I bet on Ricky Bandejas, and I go, man, this fool just cost me $50 because you submitted. you submitted.
No, a lot of people did.
Yeah, man, you were amazing. You did really, really well, and Dan had told me about your ground skills. You know what I mean? And I don't bet much. I just like to have a little bit of fun. But sometimes I feel like the experience can sometimes come into play. But you made it look super easy. I'm a big fan. It was very, very impressive. I can't wait to see what's next for you. But that was one hell of a Bellator debut over a tough fighter in Ricky Bandejas.
Yeah, it was good, man. A lot of my, my people made a lot of money off me too. Because he was the favorite or whatever. And I know a lot of people bet on me from, all my fans and supporters. They were sending me a bunch of stuff.
That's cool, man. And so, did you, the fight happened, it was all so fast. Did you get everything you wanted out of it? You guys do camps for like 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. There's all this anxiety. You have to go through a weight cut and everything. And then when you go out there and it all happens so fast, we always wonder if there's still, like, if you're bouncing off walls, wanting to just get back in there again.
Yeah, I'm bouncing off walls. I definitely want to get back in there, but, it's not. I don't think it went, too much different than, it did happen fast. But I have a lot of submissions, like where I catch a guy within the first 2 minutes of a fight. If you look at my record, I have a bunch of them. So I knew if I caught him, it was a matter of time. When if I wrapped my hands around him, I knew I'd finish him. But I just didn't know how long it'd take.
Another check mark that you hit. You happen to be on a fight card. This is a point in time where there was a big spotlight on that division. You know what I mean, with Horiguchi and Caldwell. So it's pretty funny how that I just in this debut alone, I think your name and that win's going to carry a lot of pop. Like I could see the fans and the promotion getting excited about maybe featuring you in just bigger name matchups than maybe at the rate that they were going to bring you along. Like I say, you took a lot of leaps here with this fight.
Yeah, I mean, you look at us on paper, who we've beaten, and like the wins to the losses of all of our guys, man. Like I said, I haven't lost, but my pro record, it matches right there up with Ricky's. The reason why he got such a push was because he beat that Gallagher kid, and then he had a decent fight with Juan. But he's not even on a different level. I mean, to be honest with you, I knew where I was at. I'm on a whole different level than him, and I don't know if Bellator's seen it or knew. My fights are hard to find out there, so I think they were going to I don't know how long they were going to keep me on which path, whether it was going to be rank guys first, like you said, or, a slower path. But with that win there, I knew he was one of the top in the division. So that should propel me to big fights,
Well, I wouldn't want to see you on the plan that they had MVP on, or even McKee.
Yeah, I'm not with all that, man. I beat too many good guys for that.
That's what I'm saying.
Them guys, man. Them guys didn't fight with the guys I fought. I'm here not for the promotion aspect. I mean, as much as it sounds weird, I'm here because I'm the best fighter. I've never lost. I've never even rendered one single round. So, if I get, I can keep this streak alive, 2-3 more fights, man, I'm gonna have that belt.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm telling you, this was an awesome win, man. All right, let me turn it over to the guys here. Goes, what do you have for Patrick Mix?
Patrick, so when I saw you in there, I was wondering, one thing we always think about with the younger fighters is the jitters, right, that come along with that. But you have an extensive record, not just professional, but amateur. Can you talk a little bit about what the amateur record did for you, and maybe the moment when you decided to go pro?
Yeah, my amateur record, I got dragged into this little amateur tournament at the end of my career, my amateur career, that is, and it prolonged it. I could have went at 6 or 7-0, but I went all the way to 11. I had 4 really tough fights. These guys are if you look at, I got a lot of respect, but look at Juan Archuleta's record in the beginning. He's fighting guys like 0-5, 0-6. Like, my amateur record, those last 4 fights on that thing could have been professional fights, depending on where they were sanctioned. Like, they were all sanctioned from New York when it just became legal. I don't even think it was legal yet.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to do like long amateur, extensive, like a lot of fights out there.
So you impressed a lot of people. What is the process for you where you get to actually sit down? Like, was it right away where you can plant the seeds of what you want next? Do you feel like you have that right to go and say, this is what I want now?
I mean, no one wanted to fight him, and he was calling, whoever out for MSG. He called my name out, and I went out there and finished him in 66 seconds, He just had a split decision loss to the guy that's potentially the number 1 contender, and then he knocked out James Gallagher the fight before that. So, I think the biggest fight for me, that's what I thought as soon as I won. I want the biggest fight for myself, because now I'm trying to, hunt these names down to propel my name to where it should have already been, So I knew before that fight, I wanted to fight James Gallagher because I don't think he's that great, and I know I would smoke him. So, I knew I had to get through him, and I figured what way better to do it than get through the guy that just knocked him out.
Man, Patrick Mix is not messing around.
Mm-hmm.
He makes his points with a little bit of smack talk, but he backs them up with some facts. I'm liking it. All right, Dan, Tom, what do you have for Patrick Mix?
Hey, Patrick, I'm definitely digging the confidence as well. If for some reason someone wasn't taking you serious for whatever reason, obviously they can't, deny where you're at and your confidence. But let me ask you, you don't just wake up with that confidence overnight. You don't wake up with the skills that you displayed overnight. What got you into martial arts? Did you do it young as a kid? Was there any family members or friends that helped influence you? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I started when I was young. I'm 25 now. I was, I think, 15, 16 at the time. I wrestled in high school. I had a buddy of mine. He was an amateur fighter, and he needed some training partners. So I was in the gym at that age, helping him get ready for fights for a few years. And then when I turned 19, 20, I stopped wrestling in college, and there was nothing I could really do because wrestling was the end all be all. There wasn't unless you make it to the Olympics or something like that, there wasn't really a network to get paid. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I switched, and I thought, okay, I've always been training to fight, and I always wanted to fight. I knew I wanted to fight, so I just made my debut at 20, and 20, 21, I think, right around that time, and ever since then, just have won every fight, never lost, and just kept this streak until I turned pro and all that stuff. But the confidence stems from my coaches, my training partners, and it's just confidence. No arrogance at all, just confidence. I have to believe in myself in order to do the things that I do, and in order to do what I did last Friday night.
No, it comes across well, definitely, Patrick. And obviously, you mentioned Gallagher. I wouldn't put anything. If you were to tell us that you're going for the the bantamweight title within X amount of fights, that wouldn't surprise me either. But let me ask you: you are 5'11" for a bantamweight. How hard is that cut? You don't have to maybe give your walking weight or any of that, but how hard is that cut? And is 145 maybe not anytime soon, but eventually, is that in your future?
To be honest with you, I don't know, man. About 45. I'd make 35 super easy.
Okay.
I don't have a problem at all making weight. I actually didn't cut that much weight at all for this fight. I walk around at 145 to 147.
Oh, wow.
When I'm not, when I'm not in camp, just training, because all I do is really train. So I kind of keep my weight in check, and especially with being at Jackson's, it's we train so much so often that I'm always in shape, ready.
Patrick, something caught my attention here. You said that when did you stop wrestling in college? Did you finish out all your eligibility in college, or did you stop halfway through, or what was that?
I stopped midway through. I just didn't like the hard-nosed grind of wrestling, and it was always hurting on my knees. I have back in high school, I had knee problems and stuff like that. So the year I went to college, I stopped about midway through.
You know,
And
it's probably a brilliant decision, and I'll tell you why. Because you probably, if you obviously wrestled in high school, you wrestled in college, so you got a lot of great work ethic and fundamentals, a lot of skills, but you probably saved yourself a lot of wear and tear, especially if you knew that MMA was going to be in your future. You know what I mean? So did you were thinking of that when you made this decision? That was part of the process too?
Well, when I was young, I was like tapping out pro fighters, and like I was young, like teenage years. So I knew I wanted to be a fighter. I knew I can cut it. So, like, I liked wrestling a lot, and I was really good in high school. And I was like a top prospect at that school when I went in college, but that was never my goal. Like, I never wrestled off season. I just did it in season. I just did it because I liked to do it, and I wanted to play sports in school and, stay out of trouble and not just kind of do something after school instead of hanging around like all my friends did. Mm-hmm. So I just like wrestling, and I just so happen to be really good at it. But my passion was always MMA, jiu-jitsu, the funkiness, the awkwardness, and the style of grappling. It's not this folk style wrestling, the tradition.
Right.
It's a lot different. And it was also growing. So that's what I wanted to do. That's what all my friends, nobody did, but it was the most interesting thing,
Yeah. And then the last question is, I know the RNC has been a big move for you in your career. Gotten a lot of submissions there, but I see that you won one of your bigger fights with an E-bar. Are you part of that new generation that attacking the legs, just like you see a lot in the submission grappling? Like, what's your leg lock game like?
No, I'm not that at all. That move is actually listed wrong.
Oh,
I did a salute stretch. It's the move that Zabit hit.
Yeah, and
Aljamain Sterling hit that move.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I hit that move from the back. I had a body figure four on him, and I just basically put the leg behind his head. It's not even a knee bar. It's actually that move. I should have tried it last week when Ricky was all bent over, man. I hit that move all the time. Mm-hmm. And when I watched that video back, I'm glad I got the rear naked choke because, for style points and all that, it would just been way better to hit that move again. I hit it like 2 fights ago.
Yeah. All right. Well, great stuff.
Yeah, I'm not one of the Gordon Ryans or that, the heel hook and like that. It's like a different game.
Right. No, completely understand. Well, I'll tell you what, usually, people go out there, they get the win, and it just doesn't have as much pop, but there was a lot of buzz around your win. So you actually throwing out the Gallagher name doesn't catch anyone off guard one bit, man. I think Bellator took notice, MMA media took notice, MMA fans took notice. It was a huge win, and I can't wait to see your next fight. So rest up, and before your next fight, hopefully we can have you back on the show. It's been a pleasure to talk to you tonight.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it, buddy.
All right, take care. All right, follow him on Twitter at TeamMixMMA. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation, Channel 156. When we come back, we'll talk to Sean Wheelock, who will be calling the fights for Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship 6, which takes place tomorrow night.
I don't know how I would feel at the end of the fight. We'll see. You know, I really, you know, I'm not fighting the MMA fans. I'm fighting Arnold Mobile. So I'll see. I guess I'll see how I feel after the fight.
Pack a knuckle sandwich and some punch. The boys are about to break down the latest in MMA news. Here are George, Goes, and Dan.
NBA Radio has your chance to win a trip to Las Vegas to attend Summer League and to see Aerosmith live at the Park Theater. For official rules and details, go to SiriusXM.com/NBA Summer League and do that by June 27th. No additional purchase is necessary. Void where prohibited. Must be a U.S. resident and at least 21 years of age to win. All right, our last guest of the day and of the week. His name is Sean Wheelock. Dude just flew across the world because he was calling some fights, some boxing in Japan. And now he is in Tampa, Florida, ready to call BKFC 6. Give him a follow on Twitter at Sean Wheelock. Hello, Sean. How you doing? Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio.
Gorgeous George, Goes, Dan, how are you guys? Thank you so much for having me on the program. You know, you guys were some of the first to get behind me way back in my original M1 days, before Affliction, before Bellator, before Bare Knuckle, before Roy Jones Jr. Boxing. You guys have always been so kind to me. I appreciate it. It's always fun to be on the program, and I send along greetings from Chris Lytle, who I'm actually out to dinner with right now, and also the great Art Davey, your friend and mine.
Art Davey's out there too in Tampa?
No, Art, but Art, you know, Art's basically my surrogate father at this point in my life.
Awesome.
We speak every day, and Art loves you guys as well. You know, he's in Pahrump, and he'll drive down to Vegas anytime you want him.
Yeah, we got to do that soon, too.
Yeah, we do.
All right, so also share our regards with Chris as well. Bare Knuckle, Sean, man, I hope you are strapped in tomorrow night. It's going to be one hell of a ride. I mean, these fighters have done a great job of building it up. Not just the main event, but Bedford and Barnett had some words. You know what I mean? And you know, Lieben and Dakota Cochran, these guys are just hard hitters. Someone's going to sleep there. You got to be pretty pumped up, man, even after that long flight from Asia.
I am, and you know, I feel fine. Mike Tyson, I think, famously said, "I refuse to be knocked out. I refuse to be jet-lagged." I've come to this point in my life, all my trips to Asia, all my trips to Russia. I feel like a lot of it is psychological. But I was pretty tired around 9 o'clock Eastern last night. Nothing 10 hours of sleep couldn't cure, and I feel right back on time. And if I was tired, which I wasn't, but if I was, it would have been knocked out of me just by the energy today of the weigh-ins, the fighter meetings, the press conference, all of the media there. It's amazing that I think 2 years ago I was telling you guys about this crazy thing I got hooked up in.
Yeah.
They were going to bring Bare Knuckle back, this guy named Dave Feldman, and I had been working with Dave as a consultant, just trying to help him out on some broadcasting, talking to him about regulation, introducing him to a lot of MMA fighters I knew, and much like Art Davey 25 years earlier, people were saying, this is stupid, that's the worst idea I've ever heard. And then fast forward to a year's time from that to June 2nd of last year, our first show, and now fast forward another 12 months, and it was a mob scene today. It reminded me, honestly, of my second-to-last Bellator that I commentated, which was 4 years ago this month, Kimbo Slice, Ken Shamrock. That's the last time I think I've been at an event, at least commentated an event, with this much media attention, this much press. You know, I don't know what it says about my career, but so often I'm at weigh-ins, and there's like, you know, the trainers and a couple of sponsors and some wives and girlfriends and maybe some kids. This was jam-packed today. Wow. This was absolutely insane, and I'm looking around going, I think we're definitely onto something here. It was really amazing, and you guys hit on it. I mean, everyone's talking about, and rightly so, Malignaggi Lobach. It's a stacked card. Phil Riggs is on the card. He's TV3. And he's getting, like, no attention. This Bedford versus Barnett fight for the 135-pound title is going to be amazing. Chris Lieben is incapable of a boring fight. He's taking on Dakota Cochran. This is a loaded card. I'm extremely psyched. It's one of those cards where I would be watching anyway, but that's pretty much everything in fighting with me. But I really feel honored. And you guys know I'm a guy from Kansas, very, very still humbled in this industry. And I get to commentate this fight. It's extremely humbling.
When you have, well, go back to the first couple that you called. What was it that really made you go, wow, that you weren't expecting when you first took on the role of being a play-by-play for bare knuckle fighting?
That's a great question. Lila and I were actually talking about this about an hour ago. Lytle didn't fight till BKFC 2, but he had fought some bare knuckle in England, although, and no disrespect to that promotion, they're doing extremely well in the UK. But that's not full-on bare knuckle because they do actually wrap above the knuckles, where BKFC, the group that I commentate for, that Dave Feldman is the CEO of, you can only wrap to within 1 inch of the knuckle. So the knuckle is fully exposed. But I was saying with Lytle at that first show, in the very first fight, which was DJ Linderman, who I knew from Bellator, and Arnold A.J. Adams. And all of a sudden, I thought I was watching UFC 1. I thought I was a kid back in Shawnee, Kansas, except this time I'm commentating in Cheyenne, Wyoming. It was like, what's going to happen? This is insane. There was just that level of not just energy, but danger. I think we all remember watching the old Prides and watching the early UFCs, and there was an aspect of danger and of the unknown that, and it's no criticism on MMA, but it just doesn't really exist in MMA anymore, and how could it after 26 years? But there's still that level of danger and the unknown, and I felt that as a commentator on the first one. I still feel that, 24 hours away from Malinaji Lobov, and we're talking about this at dinner, trying to figure this fight out. Usually, you guys are the same way. You guys are experts in this sport. You have a pretty good handle on what a fight is going to look like. Not that we know who's going to win, but we have a pretty good idea of how a fight is going to go. We can be surprised, but usually we have a pretty good sense. With Malinaji Lobov, I don't think anybody, including Malinaji and Lobov, really have a sense of how this fight is going to go. I have a good idea that it's going to come down to range and distance and space, and Lobov has his strategy and Malinaji has his strategy. But it's such an unknown void that both of these fighters are going into, and I think that's what's really creating all of this buzz around the fight world.
I was saying that Lobov needs to turn it into Victor Ortiz and Floyd Mayweather, or if you didn't catch that one, Sean, just basically a good old-fashioned hockey fight.
I did.
You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because look, Malinaji's boxed all his life. He's got great boxing technique. The sweet science. You just don't learn that overnight. But this is it's a whole different sport, you know what I mean? So I'm anxious to see the adjustments they can make, and then of course, this is Paulie's first venture into bare knuckle, whereas Artem, even just having that one fight, he had a lot of experience that night, because he got hit with a lot of punches, but he also threw out a lot of punches. But I mean, the fact that his face, he was looking great, all week. Fully recovered there, right. And his hands, he never once injured his hands. I was like, wow.
Lobov talked about that when we do our fighter meetings, and this is essentially just myself and my laptop and the fighter in their camp, so it's not recorded, and it's the honesty room. There's no hype. They're not selling anything. We're just speaking honestly about the fight. I'm trying to get their assessment to better my broadcast. And Lobov said that he felt a major advantage for him is that he's had a bare-knuckle fight, that he learned so much, basically on pacing, on rhythm, how hard to throw, how hard not to throw, that he feels that is one factor that he's going to have a big edge over Malinaji, where Malinaji thinks he knows what to expect, but everybody who has fought bare knuckle will tell you it's not exactly what they thought it was. They might have a pretty good idea, and maybe they hit mitts, or they hit the heavy bag, or maybe even they did sparring in wraps or bare-fisted, but until you actually fight bare knuckle, you don't know what it's like. No matter how many street fights you had as well, it's different. And a lot of the fighters say, and Lobov talked about this too, it's a common refrain this week from the guys who've done it before. It's not just the gloveless fighting, it's the 5 2-minute rounds. Lobov talked about, my training was all wrong last time for night. He said, I was doing 3-minute rounds thinking I'd be extra fit. He said, now I train 2-minute rounds because I realize this is a sprint. He said, before I was training to go long and to be in great shape like a marathon, he said, on this, I'm training that I can go 100% for 10 minutes. And that pacing is a big factor. And I don't know that a lot of fighters fully are aware of that until they've done it. Everyone is so obsessed, and rightly so, on the fact that you're bare-fisted, your knuckles are exposed. But unless you're a women's professional boxer, when do you ever fight 2-minute rounds? It's shocking the difference between a 3-minute round and a 2-minute round. It's 60 seconds, seems like nothing, right? And yet it's shocking the difference in the pacing and the rhythm, and that every fight is 5 rounds, so a maximum of 10 minutes. That's as much of a game changer, honestly, as the fact that they're fighting without gloves.
Yeah. All right. Dan, Tom, what do you have for Sean Wheelock?
Sean, it'd probably be too unfair for me to ask you, a top 5 of fighters or fights you called, but you were kind of mentioning it earlier as far as the experience of bare knuckle, and now I got to imagine even calling, a a fighter of, Paulie Malignaggi's ilk, if you will, from boxing, made me wonder. I got to imagine you keep track of, which fights and which fighters you call. So let me ask you a more fair top 5 here. Let me frame it this way, Sean. If you could give me a top 5 as far as fighters, if you wanted to represent all the sports you called, so MMA, karate combat, boxing, bare knuckle, everything related and in between, just top 5 athletes, if you were talking to someone on the street and said, well, you call fights, Sean? Well, whose fights have you called? And you wanted to just maybe throw a shotgun scatter.
Yeah, that's a cool question. I like that. I like that a lot. And so I'll preface this by saying one thing that's really, really rewarding for me, not just as a commentator, but as an absolute hardcore fight fan, is that I'm getting a chance to commentate people because I've never done boxing for either Showtime or HBO when they had it. I've never commentated the UFC. So guys I didn't necessarily think I would ever commentate, that now I've commentated. Chris Lytle, Chris Lieben, Paulie Malignaggi. That's a big thrill for me as a fight fan. That's a huge thrill for me. I did Roy Jones. It was that crazy card where he fought Byron Phillips, the MMA fighter. It was, for whatever reason, promoted like he was fighting a fan. He actually fought an MMA fighter. That was super cool. Now I work for Roy on the RJJ boxing series on UFC Fight Pass. Roy is definitely a guy there. When I did Pride, that was such an amazing experience for me. I commentated Don Fry, one of my heroes, versus James Thompson. That fight is in there. 2 fights really stand out for me, and I did 129 straight shows at Bellator. Chandler Alvarez won, and I think anybody who watched Bellator in that era, no surprise there. And kind of an underrated fight, but you can find it on YouTube or MMA Core or Daily Motion, is Joe Warren, Joe Soto, which is the greatest comeback I've ever seen, not just that I've commentated, but ever seen in MMA history. And then I would throw in Jason Knight and Artem Lobov. And I told Lobov that earlier today.
Wow.
I said, man, I'm not trying to build my resume or pump myself up to you. I'm just being flat out. I've commentated over 3,500 fights. I don't know the exact number, but I know it's over 3,500. Might be 3,800 to 4,000. I don't know. But that's in my top 5.
That's high praise.
That fight was insane. That's a commentator's dream. And for people who think, these are like fights in the back of a Walmart parking lot, if they want to think that, that's fine. I'm not here to proselytize or change anybody's mind or compel anybody to do anything. What I will tell you, though, if fight fans watch this and they're on the fence, they're going to see this is super technical. And as a gigantic fight nerd, which I am, what I love is to see contrast in styles. To see Lobov's striking style out of MMA and out of SPG Ireland coming in, and Malignaggi's style with his boxing style, to see the footwork, to see the shoulder rolls, the head movement, the slips, that's what I really like, and that's where I'm enjoying bare knuckle as a fan, as a commentator, as an employee more than anything, is the contrast in styles, which makes me think back to all of those early Art Davie UFCs, where it's this versus that, and how are these styles going to match up? Because that's what we have in bare knuckle. I think if you put MMA on one side and boxing on the other, and you go dead center, that's where bare knuckle is right now. It's bringing what you have into this brand new sport, and everyone's still trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Sean Wheelock, our guest here on MMA Junkie Radio. He'll be calling the fights tomorrow night for BKFC 6. Go to www.bareknuckle.tv for more information, not just on tickets to get to the show, because they've opened up more seating, but on how to order the pay-per-view. You can always just go to fight.tv as well and order it there. What do you have for Sean Wheelock?
Sean, we got about 3 minutes left, so we're going to have to go rapid fire, but I've been chomping at the bit to ask you.
Are we talking Manchester United?
No. We can't get to that. I'm dying to, but let me ask you this question, okay?
6 in the table, but I love Solskjaer, so that's okay.
The main event has been billed as MMA versus boxing, and a lot more so on the side of Paulie Malignaggi. Has him being so over the top on MMA versus boxing, has that made the guys in the back, the undercard fighters, do they feel like they have to choose a side almost?
Yeah, you're definitely seeing that. It's very astute that you point that out. You're definitely seeing that. For whatever reason, since we launched a year ago, BKFC has been very MMA heavy. There are a few pure boxers. My buddy Sam Shoemaker, who's 5-0 as a heavyweight in professional boxing and glove boxing. But by and large, even the fighters like Reggie Barnett, who's fighting Johnny Bedford for the 135-pound title, Reggie Barnett fought MMA as well. we've not really seen that many pure boxers come in who have no MMA experience or kickboxing experience. So you are seeing those lines being drawn a little bit, and there's great debate over this fight with the fighters. But Lobov, in many ways, is carrying the flag for MMA fairly or unfairly, and the same, fairly or unfairly, Malignaggi is carrying the flag for boxing. What I was telling Malignaggi after our fighter interview when we were just talking before I left is I said, I think regardless of the outcome of this fight, more boxers now are going to want to do bare knuckle. Win, lose, draw, no contest, they're going to say, if Malignaggi can do it, I can do it too, and they're going to open it up. Malignaggi said something to me extremely astute. He said, I'll be honest. He said, I don't have the legs that I once did to be dominant over 12 rounds, but I still have the legs to be dominant over 10 minutes. And I think a lot of boxers, former world champions who are either retired or towards the end of their pro boxing career, glove boxing career, are going to think that. This is an opportunity. Okay, I don't have gloves and I've got to learn some new techniques, but I can showcase my skills over 10 minutes, and that maybe gives me a whole nother run at a new career, or at least a few more years on the back of my career. I think that's fascinating. For this sport and this promotion to hit its potential, and I think it's going to in probably the next 18 to 24 months to become fully mainstream, you're going to have to pull not just the UFC stars and Bellator stars, which we've seen, but the pro boxing stars, and I think we're going to see the floodgates open after Malignaggi.
Sean, we got to let you go, my man. This has been fun. Let's talk next week so we can recap it, all right? But thank you so much for the 100%. Time. We appreciate it, brother. Enjoy the fights tomorrow night. And, folks, we are out of here. Have a nice weekend. Enjoy the fights. Don't forget Bare Knuckle tomorrow night. UFC, Bellator is going to be a great weekend. Catch you on Monday. Go out there and be a champion.